Thank you for listening to Stories at Pink Meow Meow Audio. Hope you enjoy the story. I don't have my own room. To be more precise, the small corner at the end of the basement hallway next to the storage room is where I have lived for the past 17 years. My mother is a longtime maid of the Luke family. After my father left, my mother brought me back here to work. Start by cleaning the house, washing dishes, and cleaning the garden. Whatever people do wrong. Gradually, she was allowed to stay in the house behind the villa, a small, damp room. When I grew up, that space was not enough for two people, so I moved to the basement. No one objected, no one cared. Mornings in the Luke family villa are always bustling. People coming in and out, people shouting and calling. Sometimes I even thought this was a 5-star hotel. The only difference is that the hotel never had my name on it. I ate in the kitchen, wore a school uniform funded by a scholarship, went to school by bus, and walked home. Don't call the young master's name, don't enter the main living room, and don't look the Luke family members in the eye. Except one person, Luke Chamda. I am not close to him, I dare not, and I cannot. Young Master Luke is the heir of the Luke family, a name that always tops the list of potential heirs in business magazines. 18 years old, just returned home and made my school stir for a week. Mr. Tuan's face was cold, his steps steady, never paying attention to the crowd surrounding him. People say he is arrogant and insensitive. I believe so too. Until that afternoon, a sudden rain fell on a black umbrella. I was walking home from school, my bag covering my head, the rain wet my shoulder. Normally, my mother will bring an umbrella to pick me up. But today she has a backache. I dare not let her go outside. So I kept quiet and got wet. Passing through the villa gate, the rain got heavier and heavier. I stopped under the porch, shivering a bit, planning to wait for the rain to stop before going inside. If you come into the house wet, you will be scolded by the housekeeper. "What are you doing there?" Familiar low voice. I turned my head in surprise and couldn't hide my surprise. Luke Tramdaw. He held an umbrella in his hand, his white shirt was clean, his sleeves were rolled up, revealing a silver watch. His eyes looked at me expressionlessly, but then the umbrella in his hand tilted towards me. The rain stopped falling on my hair. I stood there, stunned, my chest feeling tight as if something strange and soft had just fallen. I looked at him hesitantly and then bowed my head. "I'm fine. You go ahead. I won't ask if you're okay." Luke Chamdaw tilted my head slightly, as if he was used to seeing other people staring blankly at him. He lowered his voice and entered. I followed him. The umbrella was big enough to cover both of us, but I deliberately swerved to the side, avoiding hitting his arm. Every step became tense. "Are you going to stand out in the rain until dark?" he asked. "I'm afraid of wetting the floor." The first time I saw Luke Chamdaw smile faintly, not cold, not mocking, just a smile that was strangely gentle. This villa is not afraid of being raised floor. After that day, I tried to avoid him even more. Not because I hate it, but because if I get used to that gentleness, I'm afraid I won't know how to return to the darkness of the basement. But I didn't know that from the moment that umbrella covered my head, everything started to change, and my heart started to have an empty space. For the boy who stood in the silent rain, protecting me from the luxurious world that I never dared to step into, it was the first time I thought, maybe I deserve a little tenderness too. The high school I attended was one of the most prestigious private schools in the city. It wasn't that I was qualified to enter, but because my grandfather, who had a good feeling towards me, sponsored me to study with a special scholarship that exempted all tuition fees. To put it bluntly, I was the only student in the school who came from someone else's basement. I go to school by bus. While classmates drove supercars, had bodyguards to open the doors, and drivers holding umbrellas to carry them, I used a pen bought from the Nomtech stationery store, and they used a tablet to take notes. I don't have a close group of friends, don't belong to any clubs, and always sit in the row closest to the door, where it's easiest to leave quietly without anyone noticing. So when the name Luke Chamdaw appeared on the list of transfer students, I thought it was over. Even at school, I couldn't avoid that person. Have you seen Luke Chamdaw today? Oh my God, what a real male god. I heard he has a very high IQ, is handsome, and comes from a super rich family, like coming out of a manga. I heard he's very cold, studied in England, never talks to anyone. I quietly bowed my head and opened the lunchbox my mother had prepared since morning. Some fried rice, fried egg, and a few slices of pickled cucumber. Not very palatable, but warms the stomach. On the other hand, some classmates were huddled together and talking. I didn't participate, and they never asked me. The atmosphere was filled with excitement as the classroom door opened. I looked up for a second and then looked away immediately. It's Luke Chemda. He walked into the classroom with an unmistakable air. White shirt, black flap, cold eyes, and a face that make people not dare to talk. But I'm probably the only one who knows he ever held an umbrella for me in the rain. I told myself it was probably just polite, temporary, nothing to think about. But then there are some things that just don't give me the right to pretend anymore. The first gym class, I forgot to bring a handkerchief. No big deal, just sweat dripping down my neck and soaking into my uniform. Feeling a little uncomfortable, I pulled up my shirt to wipe my face. And then I stood behind me, holding a clean white towel. Use it for now. The familiar low voice. I dare not turn my head. Thanks, I mumbled. Pay me back later. Don't catch a cold. I clenched my handkerchief, my throat constricted. After school, I go to the library. Even though no one forced me, I still kept the habit of studying early and coming home late, partly to avoid running into the Luke family in the villa. There, I saw Luke Chamda sitting reading an original book hidden on the third floor where few people noticed. He wore silver-rimmed glasses, his eyes focused on the page, his face relaxed, not cold at all as rumored. There was a stray cat from the schoolyard curled up sleeping on the chair next to him. I hid behind the bookshelf and didn't come near. But then he reached out and gently stroked the cat's back as if afraid of waking it. I suddenly felt my heart soften, as if I had just secretly opened a secret corner that someone had kept carefully. A week later, I got caught up in an incident. A female classmate lost her wallet, just the day I passed through the corridor. No one saw, but because I was a maid's daughter, people easily blamed me. I stood in the middle of the surveillance room, my hands clutching my shirt, my face pale. I do not take, I do not do, no one believes, no one comments. Until the door opened, a familiar voice rang out. I saw the person taking it was my classmate next door. I looked up, and it was Luke Chemda. He stood there, his eyes calm, not explaining much, just saying one sentence enough to make everything silent. The supervisor didn't ask any more questions. The others started whispering and then dispersed as if nothing had happened. I stood there, my limbs stiff. Luke Chamda looked at me. His eyes did not carry any pity, only a strange calmness and certainty. Next time if you get falsely accused, remember to speak a little louder. I pursed my lips. I'm not used to it. He smiled slightly. Then let me get used to it for you. From that day, I started to pay more attention. Luke Chamda did not talk to anyone, just as rumored, but not because of arrogance, but because he doesn't need it. He doesn't seek out friends, but doesn't chase them away, doesn't push around or act special. He just lives his own way, and with me, sometimes so gently that it's incomprehensible. I started seeing rumors about Luke Chamda. It seems that none of the words are right. I don't understand why he helped me, but my heart from that day began to feel warm. That day, I was urgently called out to the main hall by the housekeeper before I could even change out of my school uniform. I only had time to quickly tie my hair and fix my shirt before I stood in front of my grandfather, the only person in this house who occasionally remembers my name. I wear bones. He looked me up and down, nodding in satisfaction. You have dinner with me tonight. I almost bit my tongue. Yes, my dear. Does anyone else have the same name? He squinted and smiled. A few days ago, I told someone to call her Mok Ling, but the housekeeper misheard and said Mok Suling. But never mind. If we're destined, let's have a meal. I smiled awkwardly. My heart was shaking like a leaf. I had never sat at a large dining table with the Luke family, nor had I even walked past the main security room where the crystal chandelier weighed hundreds of kilograms, and the table was long enough for 12 people. So when I walked in, the atmosphere was immediately strange. On the left side of the table were several nobles, guests studying at Luke Chamda School. Everyone was dressed nicely, wearing high-end perfume, but I only had the scent of cheap room freshener on my hand. Sitting in the middle is Grandpa Luke. Next to him is Luke Chamda. He was wearing a black shirt, buttons tightly buttoned, quietly holding a cup of tea, His eyes seemed to narrow slightly when he saw me enter. Say nothing, do not smile. I sat down, trying to shrink into a shadow. Whose niece is this? A young lady asked with a sweet voice. Before I could answer, she glanced at my old sneakers and whispered to the person next to her, loud enough for me to hear, like a dishwasher who had just been called to the wrong table. I froze, my hands clutching the napkin, my heart a jumble of shame and helplessness. He is the top student in my school. The male voice to my right rang out low and clear. I turned. Luke Tramda put down his teacup, his eyes calmly swept over the people who had just sneered. His intelligence was enough to make some people here shy away. No one said anything more, and I almost stopped breathing. I couldn't move much during the meal, partly because the food was so luxurious, and partly because the atmosphere was like a thin layer of fragile glass. I glanced at my watch. It had only been 15 minutes. It felt like an entire afternoon of math class. I bowed my head and ate the soup. When the spoon touched the bottom, I realized this dish contained black fungus, which I was mildly allergic to. My breathing started to quicken, my eyes stung, my nose burned, and my throat felt like someone was squeezing it. I raised my hand to cover half my face. No, have to go out. I stood up, bowed my head, and asked permission. I'm sorry. Before I could turn away, a hand grabbed my elbow. Are you allergic? When did Luke Tramdos stand up? I nodded, not daring to look at him. Don't try to hold it in, go out. He helped me walk, not caring about the gaping eyes around because the young master of the Luke family had just skipped a meal to follow a little girl. Dishwashing. I was taken to the break room, sat on the sofa, and drank a glass of warm water. The shortness of breath eased, but the confusion in my heart did not. I whispered, "Sorry to bother you. Can you stop apologizing?" He sighed. I'm silent. I didn't do anything wrong. It was someone else who said something bad, an adult who was careless, the housekeeper who passed on the wrong name. He sat down on the chair opposite me, looking at me like he was looking at a complicated math problem. But I don't belong at that party. I blurted out and bit my lip. Regret? He tilted his head slightly. Then where do you belong? I can't answer. Did anyone tell you that where you were born, how you live, doesn't determine how you deserve to be treated? He asked, his eyes looking straight at me. I was speechless. For the first time, I realized that I had probably been so wrapped up in the shadows that I had forgotten how to step into the light. When I returned to the basement, my mother was waiting at the door. How was dinner? She asked softly, her eyes filled with worry. I smiled and said softly, It's okay, Mom. I got to help eat. I didn't tell about being laughed at. I didn't tell about almost having an allergic reaction, nor about the boy who took me out of that party room, because I still didn't understand clearly what I was seeing in his eyes, pity, sympathy, or something else I dare not name. He has the whole world, and I have a small corner in the basement, but tonight I was the one he saved. That day, I got a bad grade in math. The story would have been fine if it hadn't happened right after a test that I stayed up all night studying for. Everything fell apart as soon as the teacher called my name, her voice somewhat disappointed. To Max Wong, what's wrong with you this time? I am not a student with results like this. I bowed my head and said nothing. I couldn't explain that I had to take care of my mother all night because of her recurring back pain, that I had drunk 3 cups of coffee to force myself to study in the flickering yellow light of the basement. I have no reason, because no one needs to hear it. After school, it started to rain. December rain in this city is cold and harsh. The raindrops fell like needles on my purple skin after a whole day of not talking to anyone. I stood under the school porch, pressed against one side of the gate. Everyone had retreated into luxury cars, black and white umbrellas of all kinds. I was the only one left with wet shoes and a shaking hand holding my briefcase. I didn't bring an umbrella, I forgot, and my mother couldn't come to pick me up today. I bit my tongue, intending to save myself and rush home in the rain. Wish or cold? I was not new to that. But as I stepped out, a figure stood at the gate. I was startled. The big black umbrella covered my head for a split second. The umbrella holder wore a black jacket, school uniform pants, wet leather shoes, and looked at me as if, "Been standing there for a long time?" Luke trammed on. "I am amazed. How long have you been standing here?" When I started to look up at the rain, he replied, so loftily that it almost blended in with the sound of the rain. I didn't say anything. Only feeling my throat tighten, we walked side by side on the small path leading to the bus stop. He still held the umbrella tilted towards me so that his left shoulder was almost completely wet. When I saw that, I moved away, embarrassed. "Don't lean too close to me. You're all wet." "So what?" he replied. "I don't like seeing you wet." That sentence almost made me stop. My heart skipped a beat as if someone had patted it lightly, just lightly. "But you know." I was speechless. I used to think that if one day I was swept away in the rain, no one would notice me. He turned to look at me. "Why did I think that?" "I lived like that. In your house, I was just a shadow. At school, I was an outsider." I lowered my head and spoke softly. I had no one to lean on. He didn't answer right away. A moment later, when we were almost at the bus stop, he stopped. "Max Suong." I looked up. His deep black eyes looked at me without blinking. "You may not have anyone, but from now on, if you don't mind, can I be the first?" I was stunned, not knowing if it was because the rain was too cold or my heart was too warm. A second later, I saw him take off his coat and put it over my shoulders so he could stand in the rain. The umbrella now tilted towards me as a clear declaration to the world. She needs protection. We stood there, one wet, one warm. A person who never thought anyone would stand by his side. A man stood there for a long time just to hold an umbrella for her at the right time. When I got back to the villa, I returned the shirt to him at the gate. He said nothing, just reached out to take it, smiled slightly, a smile as hazy as the rain. I bowed my head in thanks and was about to turn away when he suddenly said softly, "It's still forecast to rain tomorrow." I turned back and didn't understand. He just added one more sentence, neatly but firmly. "Remember to bring an umbrella, otherwise I will have to wait for you again." That night, I lay in the basement listening to the rain pounding on the tin roof. I suddenly realized that for the first time in my life, I was not afraid of the rain anymore. When I fell, he didn't say anything big, but with just an umbrella and a sentence of waiting, he made my world have room to breathe. Since that rainy day, I started carrying an umbrella every day. Not because I'm afraid of getting wet, but because I'm scared. If I don't bring it, he will wait again, and I will soften a little more. Luke Tramdaw didn't say much after that day, still with a calm face and indifferent gaze, as if he didn't care about anyone. But I started to notice that things were changing, things so small that others would ignore them. As for me, just a little gentleness was enough to remember for a lifetime. For example, the day I left my textbook on the desk, when I came back, it was wrapped in clean cardboard. The corner of the book was pressed flat with a small line of words stuck inside. "Be careful next time." The handwriting was neat, cold, but familiar. Or the day I fell asleep in the library, woke up to find a bottle of warm soy milk on the table with no sender's name. I asked the librarian who left it. She just shook her head. A tall, uniformed student with glasses said it was something his friend ordered. I wasn't sure, but a warm and strange feeling slowly arose in my heart, like when it's windy and you're wearing a scarf someone left behind. I began to be wary, not of others, but of myself. I couldn't get used to the feeling of someone caring. I couldn't let myself misunderstand that someone like Luke Tramdaw could go down to the basement for a maid. Then, one day, while I was sitting in class, my homeroom teacher called me to the office. On the table, there's a new sub-document, an in-depth exam preparation document, a beautifully printed photocopy of several hundred pages. She said an anonymous student sent it to me, saying that he saw that I was a good student and wanted to help me do better in my university entrance exams. I froze. Who would do that for me? The girl sitting behind me still borrows my red pen every day. The boys sitting at the table above me told me not to go to school with them. No, there's only one name left, but I'm still not sure. I held the stack of documents and said softly, "Miss, can I not accept it?" She was surprised. "Why?" I replied softly, enough for me to hear. "I'm afraid I owe too much and won't be able to pay it back." That evening, I walked across the schoolyard to pick up my mother. The cold wind blew through my collar. I shivered. Then I saw a familiar figure sitting under the tree, headphones hanging loosely around his neck, eyes looking at the questionnaire on his laptop. The serious face, the cold expression is still there, but not distant. When Tromdal was about to turn away, he called Maxuum. I stopped. My heart beat suddenly. He clearly waved his hand over here. I approached hesitantly. "What's up?" He closed his laptop, propped his chin up, and looked at me and asked, "You don't like my documents?" I was startled. "How did you know?" "I even know you returned the soy milk to the library counter." I choked. He looked at me, his eyes slightly narrowed, as if smiling. "I'm afraid you owe me," he asked. I bit my lip and did not deny it. "Why?" His voice was not reproachful, just curious. I answered in a voice quieter than the wind, for I had nothing to give in return. There was silence for a few seconds, and then I heard him laugh, not loudly, but sincerely. "Maxung, I'm serious. Do you think I help you in exchange for something?" I looked up, meeting his strange gaze, but there was something steadfast and gentle hidden in his usual indifference. "I don't help you because you're pitiful. I help you because you're you." That sentence was like an arrow that pierced through all the defenses in my heart, shooting straight into my weakest spot. I was so shocked that I didn't know how to react. I didn't dare ask any more questions. He didn't force me to answer. He just stood up, stretched, and conveniently removed a dry leaf from my hair. "There's a test today. Don't let your results disappoint me." Having said that, he walked away, leaving me in the shadow of a trembling heart. That night, I opened the document. The first page has a handwritten line. "You are the only one in class who doesn't copy my notes. I appreciate that." I don't want to be in debt. But if he continues to give silently like that, maybe I won't be afraid of debt anymore. I'm just afraid he'll disappear. My school doesn't often organize extracurricular activities, especially for seniors. Everyone is racing towards the university entrance exam. But this week, for some unknown reason, the homeroom teacher suddenly announced that this Saturday afternoon, our class will go on a light picnic at the lakeside park, combine relaxation and study. The whole class cheered as if they had been lucky. I'm not very happy. Picnic means group activity. Teamwork means no more shadow work. I quietly bowed my head and glanced at Luke Tramdaw, the only person in the class who still kept the same expressionless face. I thought he wouldn't go either, but I misjudged. On Saturday afternoon, I went to the park early. In my hand was a bag of sandwiches my mother made, some bottles of water, and an old tablecloth. The teacher divided the groups randomly. I was placed with 3 girls and 2 boys, none of whom I was close to, nor did I hate. People were quite polite. I kept quiet, so they kept quiet too. I had just put my things down when a familiar, deep voice rang out behind me. I was changed group. She said the other group had extra people. I turned back. Luke Tramdaw was standing there, holding a bag of food and looking straight at me. The remaining friends glanced at each other, a little surprised, a little curious, and some eyes were blurry with unclear emotions. Before I could react, he sat down, brushed his towel, and took out the food, his face still calm as if he belonged to my group from the beginning. Actually, no one objected. Who dared to refuse the young master of the Luke family? The atmosphere was quite light afterwards. Everyone sat down to eat, shared food, and talked a little about school. I didn't say anything, but he suddenly asked Maxung, "Do you like studying literature?" I was startled. No one in class called me that. Even the teacher only called me To Maxung. I replied softly, "Which Tramdaw do you like?" The way you write always gives the feeling of knowing how to listen. I was a little stunned. "Listen?" I asked again. "Yes. Some people write to say what they think. I write to hear what others have not said." It sounded like a compliment and also like something warm slid into my heart. In the afternoon, the group was assigned to make a fire and bake cakes. I'm quite clumsy, so I just sit and peel potatoes. The boys competed to light the fire like it was a competition. A moment later, someone shouted, "Hey, it's on fire! It's on fire!" I stood up and stepped back on reflex. Unfortunately, I tripped over a rock, fell backwards, and a hand pulled me back. A familiar arm, strong, light woody scent. "Luke Tramda, are you okay?" he asked. I nodded, my face red as if I had been roasted with a potato. We held hands for a while until I realized and quickly withdrew my hand. He said nothing, just smiled lightly and turned away to continue lighting the fire. But I knew from that moment my palm was warmer than the burning fire. As dusk fell over the park, everyone divided up to pack up. Some groups started playing a word-guessing game. Luke Tramdaw and I walked along the lake. No one said anything. Gentle breeze, rustling leaves, water surface reflecting pale orange afternoon sunlight. Suddenly he asked, "How are you feeling today?" I replied softly, "Well, it was more fun than I thought. Let's go on another picnic tomorrow." I laughed. There is no school that has a picnic for 2 consecutive days, so I'm talking about us, not the school. I was stunned and dared not ask anything more. He turned to look at me, his eyes softer than the afternoon wind. "Do you think today feels like a date?" I tightened my grip on my bag, my heart beating out of rhythm. He continued as softly as a breath, "If you are not familiar, I will speak more clearly next time. To Maxsoon, go on a date with me." I don't know how I got home. I just remember my mother asking me if I was tired. I nodded, but my lips smiled. Then I lay down and opened my phone to see a message from an unknown number, unsaved number 2047. I laughed 3 times today. Try again next time. I stared at the message and then clicked to save the contact name, Luke Tramdaw. A day without fences, without villas, without shells. Just me, him, and the sunset, so gentle that it made me forget that I was ever afraid of being with someone. After that picnic, I felt like I was walking around in a soft cotton blanket, every day having a warm little corner to hug. I didn't dare call it a date, nor did I dare dream that he actually liked me. I simply thought, if I could hold on to moments like that, just a little longer, my life wouldn't be so scary. But then everything started to change. Not because of me, but because of other people's eyes. Second, when I just stepped into the classroom, I felt the strange atmosphere. No one said anything to my face. But I knew something was up by the furtive glances, the hushed whispers. As I passed by the desk, I saw a crumpled piece of paper. I opened it and saw a line of red pen-scribbled words. "Shameless hanging thing." I keep the person, I don't know who wrote it, but I know too well who it is aimed at. I don't go out during recess. I sat still in class, pretending to read attentively, my hands clenched until they were sweaty. A moment later, I heard something from the group of girls at the table above. "See, ever since the picnic, we've been stuck together." I heard that he even got the young master of the Lug family to buy him breakfast. Really, that little girl? Oh my God, even if you study well, you will still be the child of a maid. Right, what do you call that? That's pretentious. I sat there silently, like a rock, not objecting, not crying, just numb. But for the first time in my heart, there was a very deep crack, a kind of grievance. There were no words to describe it. After school, I packed my things quickly, bowed my head, and left the classroom. Right at the stairs, I ran into Luke Tramdaw. He frowned, reaching out to catch my bag that was about to fall. "Why so fast? Are you avoiding me?" I shook my head. "No, I just don't want attention." He looked at me for a long time and then asked, "Did anyone say anything to you?" I bit my lip. No. He was silent for a moment, then gently returned the bag to my hand and said, "I'll wait for you at the back gate tomorrow." Have something to say? I nodded, but wasn't sure I had the courage to go. That night, I lay in the basement with the light on, studying, but couldn't read a word. Rumors don't hurt, but Luke Tramdaw's silence in the face of all that gossip was like a soundless slap. He knows. Sure he knows, but he doesn't do anything. Didn't he say he wouldn't let me get wet in the rain again? Yet now, when the whole school was pouring rain on me, he stood in the porch without saying a word. The next morning, I didn't go through the back gate. I went to the main gate and intentionally arrived earlier than the guard. I'm afraid if I meet him, I won't have the strength to keep up my calm appearance anymore, and I don't want him to see me weak. I'm so used to having no one on my side, I forgot so much that when someone was about to stand next to me, I was worried, what if that person left too? But I have evaluated Luke Tramda too low. That day in class, the whole class gathered in the hall, took a quick test, and then announced the students with outstanding achievements last month. My name was called, no one clapped. I stepped onto the stage in the invisible cold, I bowed my head to receive the award, about to step back when suddenly a clear, deep male voice rang out from the microphone. Wait! The whole hall turned around. Luke Tramda stepped onto the stage, stood next to me, took out a piece of paper from his bag, and held it up to the microphone. There have been some rumors going around my class these past few days. I think it's time to call it a day. The person beside me, Tumak Suong, is the person I chose to be with. Not because she is poor or because she is good, but because I like her. The whole hall burst into cheers. What? Really? Exploded like a firecracker. I was frozen, unable to move. Lu Chenyi turned to me and smiled softly. I said if you can't say it out loud, let me say it for you. After that day, the rumors stopped. Not because people believed I was innocent, but because the one who spoke up for me was Lu Chenyi. He chose to stand next to me under the lights in front of everyone's eyes, not avoiding, not being secretive, just standing there, like the way he used to hold an umbrella for me. That night, I received a text from Lu Chenyi. 10 p.m. I apologize for only saying it today, but don't ever think you'll be alone again. I looked at that line, tears falling without realizing it. I used to think I was just a shadow, but when he stepped out to stand next to me, I realized that a shadow can also become light, if someone believed it was worthy. I never thought I would be invited to a party of the Lug family. In fact, I didn't even know what to wear. While the girls who appeared there were all famous young ladies, wearing sparkling jewelry like stepping out from some luxury movie. And I am still Tomak Suong, the person who lives in the basement of the Lug family's villa. It all started with a text message. Luke Tramda, 1632, tomorrow night, are you free? I replied. If it's about studying, yes. The next message made me clutch my phone. It's not my grandfather's birthday party. I want you to come with me. I froze 3 seconds, reread and typed, I think there will be a lot of people who object. He just replied that no one had the right to object to who I chose. I still came because not coming would be an escape, and I don't want to continue avoiding Luke Tramda anymore. That evening I borrowed a simple white dress from my neighbor and wore my oldest pair of shoes that my mother had cleaned. Since morning I have worn nothing but a thin hair tie that I usually use as a bracelet. Looking up at the makeshift mirror behind the door, I smiled. Well, at least I'm clean. The party took place in the main hall of the mansion, a place I had only dared to pass by like a shadow before. The crystal lights were dazzling, people were standing and sitting, the atmosphere was bustling, laughter mixed with the smell of expensive perfume. I stood at the gate with my palms wet, wanting to turn away, but before I could, I heard a familiar voice behind me. I'm here, at Tramda. Today he wore a black suit, tie and tunic, a white carnation on his chest, looked at me from head to toe, without a single look of criticism or confusion, just a soft sentence, so beautiful. I didn't dare ask, is that beauty enough to stand by your side? He took me into the middle of the hall, all eyes immediately turned to us. There were loud noises, sighs, and no shortage of scrutinizing glances from distant aunts and young ladies who were once suitable candidates for the Lug family. I hesitated a little, but Luke Tramda still held my hand and squeezed it lightly once, then he leaned close to my ear, looking straight at me. We have nothing to bow our heads to. After a few polite words, we went to his grandfather, the only person in the family who was sympathetic towards my mother and me. He smiled gently, but his eyes were somewhat surprised. I'm not avoiding this. Tomak Suong's girlfriend. I bowed my head politely, my heart trembling like a tree branch in the wind. Grandpa said nothing for a few seconds and then smiled. A short but gentle smile. Yes. You are the one who makes me happy. He did not object. I almost cried. The party continued. I sat next to Luke Tromda, silent most of the time, hand resting loosely on a glass of water. Long still feels like he is suspended in a dream from which he doesn't know when he will wake up. Until a guest walked in, a tall girl with curly hair, wearing a fiery red dress, smiling but not smiling. "Hello, Mr. Luke, long time no see," she said, her tone clear. Luke Tromda nodded politely to greet Lamtisiu. She looked at me, her lips curved. This is Luke Tromda not letting her continue. My girlfriend, she was stunned. I clearly saw her eyes pause for half a second, and then she smiled awkwardly. Young Master Luke always knows how to choose a special person, and then turn away without saying goodbye. I clenched my fists. He tilted his head and asked me, "Are you scared?" I shook my head. It's just that I'm not used to it. Not used to someone daring to hold my hand in a crowd like this? He smiled. Then get used to it, because from now on I will hold your hand like this for the rest of my life. That night, when the party was over, I went down to the basement with my feet barely touching the ground. Mom greeted me at the door, looked at my dress, and smiled gently. "People notice you now?" I didn't answer, just nodded slightly, clutching my shirt as if to hold back some of the emotions that were about to spill out. I lay down on my bed, hugging my pillow, eyes half open, not sleepy. Because I know today is a day I will remember for the rest of my life. The day when someone not only stood next to me, but also dared to hold my hand in front of his whole world. After the party, the whole school officially knew that Luke Tromda and I were a couple. No more rumors, no more disdainful looks. But from then on, I began to feel a new pressure, not from school, but from the villa I was living in. My mother received a gentle reminder from the housekeeper, Mrs. Toe, to try to avoid letting her daughter wander around the house from now on. It is not convenient for the adults in the family to speak up, but tacit understanding is good. I heard that part as I passed the kitchen, said nothing, just stood there with my hands clenched. That evening, I saw Mrs. Luke Tromda's mother, sitting in the living room. I bowed politely. She looked at me, nodded slightly, but her eyes had no warmth at all. She is a noble, proud woman and never speaks bluntly, but just one look from her, I understood this girl did not belong here. I don't blame her, because I used to think the same thing. Luke Tromda still treated me the same, gentle and steadfast, but I started to avoid him. I made an excuse to study for exams, put away my messages, didn't accept the breakfast he left me, and didn't go to the gate as promised. Not because I'm angry, but because I'm scared. If I keep going, one day I will make you stand between me and your family. I don't want you to have to choose, and I don't want you to. I am the reason you lose anything. I applied for university in the province, quietly, without anyone knowing. Even my mother chose a university with a full scholarship, more than 2 hours flight away from the city. Not too far to call it an escape, but far enough to disappear from his life, as gently as if he had never been there. In the afternoon, I went to the post office to send my application. It was raining. I brought an umbrella, but still got wet. Wet because my heart is not sheltering from the rain, but trying to shelter. The pain is so intense that I dare not name it. That night, I received a text from Luke Tromda asking me to wait in the backyard at 8:15 p.m. tomorrow. If you don't come, I'll go to the basement and knock on the door. I bit my lip and didn't answer. But at exactly 8 the next morning, I showed up. Not because I changed my mind, but because I wanted to say goodbye myself. The backyard was quiet, with a light breeze and thin sunlight. He stood there leaning against a stone pillar, his hands in his pockets. When he saw me, his eyes weren't angry, didn't blame, only a deep, stubborn sadness. I was going to leave before I spoke. I nodded, not daring to look into his eyes. Because of my mother? He asked me if I was silent, or because I was afraid to move on. I clenched my fingers. Both, I said in a voice as small as the wind. He stepped closer, not touching me, just standing a step away. So let me say, this time when you look at me, no one in my family has the right to decide who I love. You're not someone who lives off you, you're someone I chose to walk with, and if they don't accept you, I'll make them change. I shook my head, eyes stinging. You don't need to carry the world for me. He said softly, I'm not stubborn, I'm mature. I burst into tears, because in the end, the person I tried to push away was the one who was using all his gentleness to hold me back. But I still go. Even though you didn't hold me back, I still left because I wanted to be strong enough when I came back so I wouldn't feel self-conscious standing next to you anymore. Before we parted, he held my hand and placed a small object in my palm. Don't call this a farewell. Consider it as me taking you away to take an exam. And when you come back, I'll still be here. I opened my hand. It was a cat keychain, the stray cat in the library that he used to pet. I cried for the first time in my life. Because one person did not leave, I was forced to leave. 3 years later, I graduated with honors and became a trainee lecturer at the National University. 3 years without a single contact. I didn't text, he didn't ask, but I know one thing hasn't changed. Then one day I received an invitation to be a guest speaker at a new generation education conference. I stepped up to the podium, shaking a little like the first time I stood in front of the whole class to receive my certificate. When I finished, amidst the applause, I saw a man standing in the last row. Black shirt, deep eyes, lips slightly pursed as if trying to hide something. Luke Trimdo was still the same as before. I got down, he walked over, and this time he spoke first. He came to pick me up. I left to find my own place, but then I understood that place was where he had always been waiting for me, to return. I don't know how long he had been sitting there. In the middle of the hall filled with yellow lights, in the middle of the thunderous applause after the speech, I caught that gaze, the look I kept throughout my adult years. When Tram Doll was still him, it was as if he had never left. But I knew the man in front of me was no longer the boy who held an umbrella for me when I was 17. He didn't come over right away, just looked at me as if confirming that I was still me. As for me, my heart beat like the first day of the rainy season. I left the hall, one hand holding the documents, the other clutching the silver cat keychain. The gift you gave me years ago, I still keep it intact without a scratch. I don't know why I ran. Run as if I'm even a second late. I'll lose you again. I stopped when I heard him call, Mac Deong. I turned my head. He stood there, breathing lightly, as if he had just run after me all the way. I'm still the same, he said, his eyes glued to me. I pursed my lips, my voice choked. I didn't hear you call. I thought I was seeing things. He laughed, so I thought wrong several times. Every time I see someone wearing a black coat standing outside the school gate, I'm mistaken. We took a walk around the old school grounds where the conference was held. The sky was windy, leaves were falling sparsely. The air seemed to hold people's feet to stand still. I asked him, why did you come? He turned his head, his eyes looking at me as deep as the sea. Because the day you left, I didn't see you off. I didn't want us to meet again like strangers. I chuckled, my hand tightening on the strap of my bag. 3 years, he nodded. I know because I count every day. I keep people. He doesn't talk much, but every word is a knife. Hit the wall I've been trying to build for the past 3 years. I asked him what he had been doing for those 3 years. He replied in a calm voice. He studied business administration and took over the company. In front of the family, he said frankly that he would not marry anyone. If they want to push me, then leave me alone. I looked at him, choked. For you? He nodded. For you. Because of the promise that year when you return, I would still be here, and you kept your word. Now it's your turn." He pulled a small box out of his pocket. I didn't dare open my eyes, but my heart already knew what was about to happen. He opened the lid to find a simple silver ring, no diamonds, no frills, but inside are engraved 2 small words, Mac Daw, my name and your name. He knelt on one knee. I burst into tears. To Os Maxyong, I'm not perfect, but I spent my youth learning how to love someone without hurting her. I used to be a young master who didn't know how to face public opinion. I used to be a son who couldn't protect my mother. I used to be a person who wasn't strong enough to keep you. But now, if you agree, let me be the one to hold your hand, grow up with you, and face everything in the future with you. I burst into tears. No flowers, no aisle. Only one man knelt in the middle of the old schoolyard, his hands shaking with excitement, his eyes red with anticipation. I couldn't speak, just nodded several times. He stood up and put the ring on my finger like when he was 17, he used to hold out an umbrella to block the rain gently and firmly. That evening, I called my mother. "Mom, I saw him again." Mother's voice trembled. "Does he remember me?" I smiled. Tears fell and wet my pillow. Not only missing, but also waiting. The next day, I packed my luggage and returned to the city, not to the basement, but to a small apartment on the 9th floor that he had personally chosen, with a balcony facing the sunrise. He said he didn't want me to live underground anymore. "From now on, you should learn to get used to waking up and finding yourself high up. Some people leave to grow up, some people stay to wait to grow up. And we chose to love each other with all the best things that youth left behind." The first night I moved into my new apartment, Luke Tram Da went to buy food while I was busy packing my books. The silver cat keychain still sits on the table as a gentle reminder of the years I quietly grew up. I opened a small cardboard box. Inside were scraps of paper, letters I never sent, each line super crooked. "He didn't come to class today. I don't know if he's sick. I saw him helping a stray dog in the library. What a gentle person. I like him." But not daring to say anything, I burst out laughing until my eyes stung. For 3 years, I kept all my feelings inside, just waiting for the day I could tell him. When Luke Tramdav returned, I was sitting in the middle of the living room hugging a pillow, reading and blushing. He tilted his head and raised his eyebrows. "What are you doing?" I held up a piece of paper and handed it to him. "Proof that I loved you before I knew I was in love." He took it, skimmed through it, then chuckled. "So there was someone who used to hide in the corner of the classroom and peek at me, thinking no one knew." I pouted. "I know." He nodded. "Ever since you took this box of soy milk but didn't drink it and wrote on the lid that you'd return it, I knew you were the most stubborn person I'd ever met." I scratched my head, embarrassed. "And you? Is there anything you haven't told?" He thought for a few seconds, then went into the room and pulled out a wooden box. Inside was a cheap plastic hair clip my mother bought me in 10th grade, an 11th grade student notebook that I tore and then disappeared, a pencil drawing of a library cat I left in the library, and the picture of me sleeping in the library with my hair down on the table. I was stunned. He rested his chin calmly. "I picked up everything you forgot, not because I like things, but because I'm afraid that one day you will really leave. I want to keep something back." I bit my lip. "So why didn't you say anything?" I asked softly. He replied because at that time I was not brave enough to believe I was loved. We sat next to each other in the soft yellow light, telling each other all the things we had never said. During extra classes, I secretly looked at him. The times he pretended to pass by just to see if I had an umbrella. He told me that on the day you took the university entrance exam, I went to the exam hall and waited outside until you came out, but I didn't dare call your name. I looked at him with tears in my eyes. He is a rational person. I say that, but because of you, I do many strange emotional things. He smiled. Because you're the only thing I don't want to weigh and calculate. That night I fell asleep on the sofa, still wearing my coat. He didn't wake me up, just covered me with a blanket and wrote a few lines on a note, stuck it on the table and said goodnight. Tomorrow starts a new life together. The next morning when I woke up, the sun was filling the small apartment. I stretched my shoulders and saw 2 servings of egg bread and warm soy milk on the dining table. He was standing in the kitchen, his hands wrapped in a towel. He turned around and asked, "Miss, do you want something sweet or savory today?" I smiled and ran to hug him from behind, wanting to spend the rest of my life with him. He turned his head and placed a light kiss on my forehead. "Then don't leave." That afternoon, we returned to the old villa to visit his grandfather. The basement was still there, but I was no longer the girl who used to walk barefoot on the cold tile floor. I walked beside the man who chose to love me since I was 17 years old and has never let go. Grandpa looked at me, then looked at our hands holding each other and smiled gently. Finally home. I smiled softly so not to leave again. I used to think I was the shadow in this mansion, the one living on the edge of the light, but it turns out I'm just the light, waiting for someone to dare to look at it straight. I never thought of wearing a wedding dress, not because I don't dream, but because I don't dare. When I lived in the basement of the Liu family's mansion, I didn't even dare to touch the white curtains of the banquet hall where birthday parties were held for the children of that high-class world. Yet today, I was standing in the dressing room in front of the mirror, wearing an ivory wedding dress that he had personally picked out. The dress was simple, no rhinestones, no long tail, but fit me as if it had been made specifically for me since the day I was born to be his wife. The wedding party had only 20 people, no grand ceremony, no photos to post on social media, just a small ceremony by the lake where he and I used to walk when we were 18. When he asked me if today felt like a date, the old question was replaced by another, warmer, more serious, that made my heart ache. To Mak Suong, do you want to move out of that basement and officially move into my heart? I smiled and nodded. Not only do I want to move into your heart, but I also want to register my residence. After the ceremony, he held my hand and walked to the car, still the same tall figure, holding on tight as if I let go for a second I would disappear. I looked up and asked him, "Why was it me back then?" He thought for a couple seconds. "Because you were the only one who didn't try to approach me. I stand in the corner silently and shine by myself, but people like you are attracted to that quiet light." We are not on honeymoon. He said he just needed to see me dozing off at the dinner table every morning and hear him remind me every evening that I had class at 7 a.m. tomorrow. Every week is a honeymoon. I laughed so hard but still can't get a pay cut. He nodded. He was willing to be an unpaid employee as long as the benefit was to sleep with the director every night. I blushed and waved the tablecloth to chase him away like a cat. My mother moved to live close to the new house. Every weekend, she comes to cook, bringing a bunch of stories to tell her son-in-law. At first, I thought my mother would be difficult to approach Luke Tramdaw. Who would have thought that just a month later she would tell me, "I'm relieved now. My eyes are not blind, as I feared." I hugged my mother, laughing and crying. As for his grandfather, at the wedding he only said one sentence. When he was little, he held an umbrella for me. Now it covers for life. That night, I lay next to him, our hands clasped together. Outside the window, the city lights twinkled like falling stars. He turned to me and asked, "Are you scared?" "I'm surprised." "Afraid of what?" "Lifelong," he replied. I laughed, resting my head on his chest. "If I go with you, I'm not afraid." A few months later, I opened an online creative writing class called Basement Lights. Each student who attended the class received a small piece of paper with the sentence, "No matter where you are, believe that you are worthy of love." I didn't sign it, but he knew, because that's what I said the first night back in the city when he asked me, "You've changed a lot, haven't you?" And I replied, "The only difference is that now I've learned to believe I'm worth it." We live a normal life. We argue, we get angry, but you never let go. Even when I'm silent, you'll still make a cup of hot milk and put it on the table, not saying anything, but still being there. And so do I. No matter where I go, no matter how tired I am, I'll still come home, where there's a light in the kitchen, where someone once said, I don't need the whole world, just you are enough. From the basement at 17 to the wedding ring at 25, I've gone through a long journey to learn to believe that there are people who love you not because you're perfect, but because you are you, the person they want to be with no matter what the world is like.